Okay, so let's look at example 2. We want to identify the population, the parameter, the symbol for that parameter, the sample, the statistic, and the symbol for that statistic. And somewhere along the way, when I copied and pasted, I lost the word the following. Okay, so number 1, a researcher is interested in the average number of dogs per household in the United States. She takes a random sample of 500 households and excuse me, and finds the average number of dogs to be 1.2. Okay, so that second sentence tells us the sample. The sample is 500 households. That were questioned or interviewed or whatever it might be that we think of they got that information. Okay, and then remember, a sample has a statistic. In this case, our statistic is an average, and it's 1.2, but our symbol for that statistic for an average is X bar. Now remember, an average so an average for a sample, we use the symbol X bar. There it is. All right, now let's go on to the population. Remember, the population is the bigger group that we really want to know about. And in this case, we want to know the average number of dogs per household in the United States. So our bigger group is all households in the U.S. And population, the measurement we make is always called a parameter. The parameter in this instance is also an average. We don't know the actual parameter, but we use the symbol, the Greek symbol mu, for an average. So let me insert that symbol, mu, for an average when we're talking about the parameter. All right, now, number 2. A researcher is interested in the proportion of working voters in the United States. He takes a random sample of 2,000 people and finds that 305 were working voters. Okay, so again, let's start with that sample. It tells us the sample is 2,000 people interviewed or surveyed or whatever method might have been used. All right, and this is again a statistic because it came from a sample. Now in this case, it's not an average, it's a proportion. And we used a p hat for a sample proportion. P hat for a sample proportion. Now we can actually figure out what that sample proportion is. It's 305 out of 2,000. And of course that can be reduced to that fraction, but I'll leave that up to you. All right, now the larger group is our population, and in this instance we're looking at working voters in the United States, but we want the proportion out of all the voters in the United States that are working. So we're really looking at voters in the United States to see how many of them are actually working voters. All right, and then remember that population measurements are called parameters. We don't know what our population parameter is, but we do know we're looking for a proportion. And the symbol for a population proportion is P without the hat.